Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Joe.
And you're listening to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up, the podcast. And this week, we're reviewing The Hunger Games Mockingjay, Part 2.
Go, hashtag Team PETA.
Welcome to the 5th episode of How Many Fingers, featuring two guys getting glazed and reviewing movies in a weekly podcast form.
Alright, and before we start this podcast, I'm gonna... I almost said... I'm about to say a true thing. I'm about to say a true thing. You ain't been promises. When Usher wore you change. Goddamn, you changed. But I'm about to say a true thing. Basically, our first few episodes, this is a true thing. Our first few episodes, we did essentially stockpile.
Yeah, I mean, industry secret. These are not live episodes.
This is an industry secret.
Pre-recorded. Shut the fuck up. We have to pre-record these because of our schedules and where we live.
Oh, definitely.
So we recorded 4 that first time that we hung out, and now this is the second batch, so we have the privilege and the honor of looking back and seeing what's been accomplished so far.
We do. Some episodes that we've released before now are very cringeworthy.
Mm-hmm.
I can cite The Bridge of Spies. I almost said Enemy at the Gates. I feel like those are really similar titles.
Yeah.
But I didn't even say... Okay, never mind. But yeah, we've learned some things, and we're going to start applying them to these podcasts, even though we really haven't. Like, for example, I mean, I can get a little closer to the mic. Mike can back away a little.
Yeah. Cough less, laugh more.
Right. What I was about to say is, like, throw in, like, our SoundCloud link and, like, other stuff. But we recorded a few other episodes, and we haven't done that. So... why start now?
Yeah, but I mean, I think either way, the reception has been pretty awesome.
It has.
Either way, for just being two guys getting drunk and reviewing movies.
It has.
It's pretty cool to see those follows coming in and those likes and those listens. So thank you for that, and keep it up.
It is. Thank you, everybody who's been listening.
And thank you for supporting our drinking habits. We won't let you down.
Don't let me down.
So on that note, this week we are drinking Bud Light Lime, which was requested by our very special guest, Lindsey Daly.
Let's open it up right now.
I apologize for making you drink this girly beer.
It's not a girly beer, just...
I'm not ashamed of my choice.
I feel like I'm drinking a Tostitos chip.
That is.
With a hint of lime.
With a hint of lime,
It has that... Well, yeah, the hint of lime Tostito chips. But this really... I've never liked these. It's like... Lindsay just gave me like a look like...
This is the only beer that I find tolerable to consume.
We could have drank hard alcohol. We still haven't incorporated that with our
we'll have
podcast.
to do whiskey one episode whenever.
You know, I'm not going to come in here and change everything up.
No, we can. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for sticking with the theme.
But
I think tolerable is a good word for this.
It's literally just like I feel like I'm. The Tostitos chips is a way better analogy than what I'm about to pop off. But I always say that I feel like I'm drinking the lime flavor of the breakfast cereal Trix. Like, I feel like that's being incorporated.
So really what we're tasting is just the artificial lime flavor.
Right, the artificial lime.
That the food industry is throwing
I
in.
can't imagine any real limes were put into making this
I
beer.
feel like it tastes like Cinco de Mayo. If that was a taste.
Tastes like college-ish.
Like college Cinco de Mayo, yeah.
Yeah.
Like racist stereotypes that we did in college.
What?
I feel like everyone like throws on like a sombrero and stuff for like Cinco de Mayo and just lets their inner racist flag fly.
Right.
But yeah, anyway, so this is Lindsey Daly. She runs a blog called The Daily Struggle. Is it dailystruggle.com?
Yes, it is.
Nice.
You want to spell that for us?
Daly would be Daly because, it's a play on words for daily.
That's her last name.
So it's basically...
You heard it here.
It's actually very annoying.
You heard it here first.
It's very annoying that I named it that because anybody who doesn't know my last name or doesn't know me well just thinks I can't spell.
Right, yeah.
So then no one wants to read the blog of a person who can't even spell the web address. Right. But that's what it's called for now. Just about my struggles being a 25-year-old girl.
Your daily struggles, yes.
Yes, on the regular, I'm struggling.
Last name struggles.
It's very funny, though, so make sure you check it out. It's a good read.
It is.
Always a good post over there. So this week, we're reviewing The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. And according to the IMDb description...
I forgot who was reading what, so I will jump right into this.
Go for it, Joe.
As the War of Panem escalates to the destruction of the capital, of the other districts by the capital, Katniss Everdeen, the reluctant leader of the rebellion, must bring together an army against President Snow, while all she holds dear hangs in the balance.
All right, so Joe, I got to ask you. I've seen all the movies, but I haven't read any of the books. Lindsey has read all the books and seen all the movies. He's a huge fan. This is the only movie you saw. So does that IMDb description, is that just as confusing to you out of context as the movie was?
Yes. As you heard me struggle through that IMDb description, which I literally just had to read verbatim, and that was a challenge. I'm not familiar with a lot of those words, and it's not just because I'm inebriated. It's because it's just completely out of my realm. I'm not familiar with this universe, and believe me, that came into play when I saw this movie. I feel like... Should I be the first one to describe my experience with this? Or, did you guys... Was that your description of, how... Anyway, fuck it. Okay.
Hop in, yeah. I would like to hear yours first, because I think that's more interesting.
Okay. So I know, I think at least Mike and I aren't super familiar with this series. I know Mike was a super champion, and he plowed through these movies, I think.
I'd seen the first one, a while ago. Not right when it came out. I watched it when it was on Netflix. And then I knew we were reviewing this, so I actually watched everything.
Right. So I did not see the first one. Nor the second one.
Or the third.
And the books, didn't read them. Why, Joe?
Yeah, I'm not sure how you thought you could even understand this film if you haven't seen any of them.
I thought they would give some clues to people who hadn't seen it. At least something.
Well, it's not like they're going to do last on The Hunger Games.
My first impression of The Hunger Games is that my youngest cousin, who was in the single digits at the time, read the first book, and I was like, children's book. I'm not interested. And then the movie starts coming out, and I start to hear the plot line of it, and I said, wow, that sounds a lot like Battle Royale. And then I looked at the Japanese film, Battle Royale, which I feel like The Hunger Games essentially stole. Battle Royale is a bunch of teens, kids, and because there's, a population problem, they put these kids on TV and they make them battle Royale. But anyway, I feel close to that film. I really enjoy Battle Royale, so I felt some sort of allegiance and never watched The Hunger Games. And again, I thought it was in the same vein as Twilight, something I've never really indulged in. So anyway, fast forward to we're doing this podcast. Lindsey wanted to come on and talk about this film, so I was like, okay, I'll watch this film, and that's it. And I wanted to give a review of somebody who has no background of this franchise and just watched this film. And let me tell you, it's like watching the season finale of a show you've never heard of.
What do you think happened prior to these movies, based on what is explained to you? in the movie you saw.
See, it's a little different because I have some sort of social context about, it's like a battle royale ripoff. But I would have never known that if I saw this. Like, I would just be like, The Hunger Games, don't know what that is. Like, kind of thing. But besides that, it is, I mean, I know it's a part 2.
Mm-hmm.
Something else we can talk about is, it feels like a cash grab, kind of. I feel like I just used that term in another podcast, but it feels like a cash grab in the same way that the part 2 of a Harry Potter film or part 2 of a Twilight film.
Oh, yeah, I mean, they split it up, obviously.
They split it up because it's a great financial move. It's like, it makes money. This, in particular, seemed like it was just one journey, like, it was a one-way road. It hardly seemed like there was 3 acts.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm talking a lot. I feel like somebody else should cut in who knows more about this film than I do.
I was honestly curious about what your interpretation of the film was with no context, because what I saw, I knew you were seeing it without seeing the other ones.
It's
so
hard.
The entire time, all I was thinking about was like, oh, they need a little more context here for Joe. Right. Joe is not going to understand what is going on.
I don't know who Peter is. I don't know what happened to him.
Yeah, they don't even really do a great job of introducing the characters that are in this.
It really, literally, the first scene has Jennifer Lawrence, or Katniss, literally, it just opens in the middle of a scene almost, where she's like, and she has bruises on her neck. And obviously, this is a big deal. This is what the movie's opening on. She's been injured, and it becomes apparent that she's been injured by PETA. But, like, that's the biggest explanation that I've received besides...
So if you've seen the movie before that, PETA has been brainwashed by the Capitol, blah, blah, blah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So now he's afraid of Katniss. They do kind of go into this one. But literally, like, one of the last scenes in the last one is Katniss staring through the window at PETA, who's, like, strained to this bed because he can't control himself, and he, like, already choked her and whatnot. So it does pick up, like, if you had seen the last movie... It makes sense right where it picks up. But again, they don't give that context very well throughout the film.
They're just assuming that people going to see the last movie, though,
yeah,
that
but I feel like you still at least
movie.
need to give context in terms of like who characters are and stuff like that. Like, as you're introducing them in the film.
I feel like at least Harry Potter
because someone
and Twilight
could, like
have,
Joe did, give $13 and go see it by himself. Or you watched it illegally, didn't you?
I watched it illegally.
I know it.
Here's the other thing. It took me 3 different nights to watch this. That's how painful it was, because I don't know anything. Can I just say, I'm going to go off on a little other tangent?
Yes.
So anyway, we prepared these films. I mean, me and Mike planned these films in advance on a Google Docs calendar. Anyway, I told Mike, I bragged to him and a few other friends. I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I've never done this before. Remember, kids used to do this in middle school, but I was too chicken shit to do it. Is go to one movie, and then just without paying for another ticket, believe it or not, go into another movie. And I was going to try to do it 3 times. I was going to try to see 3 different movies, but it did not turn out that way.
No.
It did not. They really fucked me up. The theater, because they really...
You got caught doing this?
I didn't get caught, but like... I went early, so
you brought a scary paper mask.
I went early, so I only had to give like one person a ticket, like at the entrance. But then by the time I got out of this movie, the movie that I was seeing first, they separated it into 2 different sides. So now people were checking tickets on each side, so I was stranded on one side.
Oh.
And my next movie is on the other side. And then I went home. And I watched The Hunger Games online. Instead of
so it's
seeing
the same effect. You stole this movie.
I did, and
you robbed the theater industry of $12.75
I had
plus
to watch
tax.
it in 3 different doses because that's how unintrigued I was. Again, because I have no background with this film.
No, and the entire time I was watching, that was all I was thinking about was Joe is.
I read all the books, and there are times that even I forget what's going on because they do just kind of like bring characters in without explaining whatsoever who they are. Like in this one. I think her name, like, I don't even remember her name, but I believe it was Paler. She ended up becoming, spoiler alert, she ends up becoming, like, the president of the Capitol or whatnot.
Oh, they call her, like, President Coin?
No, not Coin. Exactly. You just saw the film and already
yeah.
forget who she is because there's just like too
the black
much.
one.
That's
I was dancing around the topic, but yes. So the black
African
lady.
American, sorry.
The African American woman.
African Pana.
I had completely forgotten that was even a character, and I've read all the books. So I always watch these movies and think, if I'm confused sometimes, there is no way that people are watching these films and actually know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So you are proving that is
right,
indeed true.
I mean, I was talking to my girlfriend, and even she was like, I never read any of the books, but I went into the first movie very confused, kind of like I felt like I was missing something because I didn't read the first
I actually only read the books because I saw the first movie first, and I thought it was an interesting movie, but there were just so many things that I didn't understand that's why I actually read the books.
Have you ever watched or heard of Battle Royale?
No, I've heard that people think she stole the idea, but I haven't watched it.
It's a good movie.
I'll check it out.
Joe's recommendations.
Is there a book that I have to read before it, or that's
it's just a Japanese film.
Yeah, there is a book. There is a book. I don't know how I just mystically know this information.
There's a mystic force at hand.
Something just told me that there's a book.
No, we got some boys
it's
here.
It's a ghost that's wearing a plaid shirt.
Up, yeah.
This guy named Nick in the room. He's waiting to do his episode.
Like we said, these are not recorded live, so we have
got
all
a
our
whole
guest stars stacked up in one room right now. Listen to us record.
It's a little awkward.
Judging us as we record.
But God, we spent a really long time talking about what I thought about it, and I don't really know anything about this film. So you watched...
Why don't we go bottom to top? So you, no prior knowledge of this.
Right.
And you're overall not good. Not a good experience for Joe watching this movie, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. All right, so I did not read any of the books.
Right.
But I saw all the movies, and I thought it was okay. It was middle of the road. I think it's good in terms of comparison against other blockbusters because it's not like super cheesy and stuff like that. I think they are pretty real with the emotions in this movie, and that's the thing is that it's sad. It's like a sad movie. All the movies are pretty sad, like depressing.
Like when I leave the theater, I feel like shit.
Yeah, which is not how you usually feel when you see a movie that like makes that.
I don't want to talk to anyone on the way home. I just need to like decompress after these.
And
movies.
like, there's really not a lot of comic relief in it. Like occasionally, like Hey Mitch will say something like, "Oh, I'm drinking." That's his punchline. But like for the most part, it's like.
Or he'll basically insinuate that Katniss is a bitch.
Yeah, but for the most part, it's seriously just like real emotions, like people actually dying and stuff like that. Katniss is suffering from like PTSD from the things she's seen in the games, so it gets pretty intense with that, which I appreciate about it. But I think it might have also benefited from some comic relief because it is a blockbuster and it doesn't really go as real as you would maybe want a movie that's going to be that depressing to go.
Right.
So it was kind of like, I feel like it's stuck in the middle of like, it can't decide, like, are you a blockbuster movie that's a crowd puller, or are you going to be like this really real movie about real emotions and stuff? Mm-hmm. And I guess that's my complaint about it, is that it was fucking sad.
Well, yeah, speaking of comic relief, it's like people are so tense that it gets to the point where people think something's a joke when it's not. Like, I don't know if this happened when you saw it, but in the end of the movie, after her sister dies, and that's like the whole reason that this all started, is to save her sister, and her sister gets killed anyway, so obviously she's devastated. And this cat that Katniss always hated, but her sister loved the cat, is still there. Uh-huh. And so she's like being an asshole to the cat, and people are like laughing, but it's really her having this like emotional breakdown that her sister is dead. And I'm like, guys, I don't think this is supposed to be funny.
It didn't translate well, yeah.
Yeah, like at first they're like, oh, it's funny that fucking cat is still here. But then it's like her breaking down for the first time that her sister's dead. So that was like awkward in the theater for me personally. I was like, guys, no.
Yeah,
we're supposed to be upset.
Without any sort of context, I had no clue her sister died for a really long time. I figured it out before the movie was over, but I was like...
Well, she did die towards the end, but they don't like explicitly say that.
And it came out of nowhere. It was just kind of like a ton of shit was happening, and then like Sister? And it was like,
well, that's another thing. Is like if you've seen the other movies, then you'll recognize who Katniss's mother is. And this scene where they quote unquote say that Prim or whatever died is when Katniss's mother is tending to Katniss, and I forget what Katniss says. She says something like an open-ended question, and Katniss's mother just literally doesn't respond.
Yeah.
So if you've seen the other movies and read the books, and you know that that's Katniss's mother, you know that her non-response means Prim is dead, and she just doesn't want to bring the subject up because they just don't want to talk about it.
A lot of things in this movie happen via, though, just like a look. Yeah. Some people don't
Which is
kind
of cool for a blockbuster, but like at the same time, like when you have a blockbuster, you have people like Joe coming to see it for other obligations.
Or watching it illegally.
Yeah, who haven't seen the other movies, and you need to give a little bit of context there.
No
like
idea.
you can't really treat it like an art film in that way.
Like, there are questions I want to get into, but that would just take the whole... it would just take the whole podcast for us to explain. But I really want you guys to get into the actual film, and I feel like I can comment along. So
all right, well, moving further up the scale, I thought it was all right.
Why was Elizabeth Banks in like drag, or what was that? Okay, no, continue though.
So she's from the Capitol, and that's how people dress at the Capitol. That's really it. That's how they dress in drag. It's very futuristic.
Man.
Yeah, that's why like Stanley Tucci's character has like the weird makeup and stuff too, and then Lenny Kravitz.
Well, he never met his character.
Oh, that's right. He died before.
Yeah, no, I didn't see Lenny Kravitz.
They all kind of blend together because I watched them over the span of like 48 hours.
Yeah, he had died like 2 films ago, so...
I didn't even remember seeing Stanley
Reverse
Tucci.
Spoiler alert.
He's almost unrecognizable, I think, if you don't know he's in the movie.
A lot of people are.
He's the guy that's on the TV for the Capitol.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he's like that
with, like,
host.
the pulled back ponytail. hair.
But he was only in it for like a minute or 2. But yeah, I thought the movie was well done because as somebody who's read the books, it is very true to the books. Like they leave a lot out because that's always going to happen with a book, but there's nothing in the movies that does not happen in the book, if that makes sense. Like they don't add anything or take any sort of like license to change things.
But this film was like the second half of a book.
Yes. But I will say that it did make sense to me to split it up into 2 because the first part was explaining pretty much how the Capitol had taken PETA, Katniss's reaction to that, her realizing that she does care for him more than I guess she like was previously letting on that she did, and how they kind of train him to kill her. So that's...
I thought it ended up hurting part 1 though, like because I thought all the real like climax of what was Mockingjay the book was probably put into part 2 because like the climax of like part 1 just really does not hold up at all compared to what the climax of part 2 is, or even the climax of like Catching Fire. But
I
and the
will
Hunger
say,
Games.
like as somebody who's reading the books, when we finally they finally save PETA, you're so relieved, and then to find out that he actually is like no longer himself and he's this like brainwashed person wants to kill her. That's like a shocking part of the book.
They made it work, but it was just like, I think in hindsight, looking back when you compare the movies, like
the first movie is kind
part
of boring.
1 gets the short end of the stick there in terms of like emotional depth boring. And whatnot. I think it's clear to tell that they kept a lot of stuff from the book in part 2 just by how long like the ending took, because there was like 4 or 5 like false endings where you're like, oh, okay, here's where they're going to end it, and they kept going on. It reminded me of like Return of the King, like where it just like keeps going and going and going.
Right. It didn't seem like it had a lot of plot points. It was more of like a mission that was just like, we gotta keep going. There's this
and our
thing.
friend
We gotta
died.
Keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah, and you know, again, maybe it was because I didn't see it, but see any of the other movies, but it did just seem uneventful to me. And that's like, until the end, nothing really happened that I cared about. So.
Man, tough,
it's gonna be a
tough
terrible,
critic.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So Joe hates the Hunger Games.
Joe is not a fan of the Hunger Games.
Almost as much as other Joe hates Matt Damon.
Spoiler alert, because that episode's coming out after.
Oh, sorry.
I want to talk about maybe because this was the last film that I think we'll see the departed Philip Seymour Hoffman,
Mark Wahlberg,
the guy who's not here anymore, Philip Seymour Hoffman. I could definitely tell there was a scene or two that was like 3D animated.
Yeah, I did notice that too. And you could tell towards the last half of the film that they were kind of just pulling takes that were just kind of like, they were just supposed to be background takes. He really does not talk for like the last half of the film, and they even have to have like a letter from him and I don't know if that's in the book. Does he write a letter to Katniss in the book?
I honestly don't even remember, but I'm assuming he just says it to her.
Yeah, because it seemed like a conversation that probably would have happened, but towards the end, there's a letter.
Because I did read that they had to...
Yeah, Woody Harrelson has to read this letter to Katniss from, what's his name, Plutarch Evansby, his characters. Yeah, you could tell towards the last half of the film, they were just like, all right. We'll just have him have this old take where he's just sitting here looking from another scene and make it work, and he just has like no dialogue for the last half of the movie. But I mean, I guess you give him a pass for that because he was dead.
Right. That's funny, Mike.
We'll cut him. All right, you know what?
You think it's funny that a man died?
I'm saying we'll cut him a break. All right.
All right.
Yeah, well, obviously it wasn't his fault.
What was his fault? We won't get into that.
I kind of just picture like Philip Seymour Hoffman like, oh man, this is dark. I don't know if I want to get into this. Like,
get into it, please.
Like overdosing and being like, shit, the last film I'm gonna be in is in the Hunger Games. being like, shit.
Like trying to like pull the needle out.
No. Should have been the master.
So many other movies.
Yeah.
Well, now that we've gone to that place,
what a dark place to go.
I don't know where you go from there.
But yeah,
it can only get better.
A lot of cool effects in this movie, like when they went into a town that got overflowed with oil and the zombies that came after them.
I thought that part was weird and kind of fell out of nowhere. How is that portrayed in the book? I have to ask you. The
hounds?
The zombies or whatever they're called, the mutts.
Yeah, so in the Hunger Games... So that's like an inside
joke when they're calling PETA a mutt, right? Like, that's a thing that we know exists in this universe prior to them arriving?
Mutts are things that are created by the game makers in the Capitol. So, like, in the first Hunger Games movie, for anyone who maybe didn't see it, they what they do, like, they just find new ways to basically kill the people in the arena when they're not, like, killing each other fast enough or it's not as entertaining.
Okay.
So they created these mutts that are just these, like, beasts. So in the first Hunger Games, they just look like dogs, but their eyes are the eyes of the other Hunger Games contestants, I guess you would call them, who have already died. So it's like, everything they do is just to, like, fuck with the heads of these people that they're torturing. So, like, if one comes at Katniss, but it has the eyes of this girl that she, like, befriended in the arena, like, she doesn't want to kill it because she's, like, so fucked up from that. So
they're supposed to look like actual dogs, or
so in the first film they're dogs, and I thought that they were still dogs, and then, like, that whole scene, like, the build up just took so long, and I knew it was coming, so I was really scared. And I do want to say
that's to the film's credit, like, the suspense in that scene I thought was one of the better parts, because there was a lot of, like, all right, you were expecting it to the jump to come at, like, this hallway scene where she's looking down there with a flashlight, and then it didn't come, and they dragged it out for a while.
Too long.
I thought not too. I thought it was just enough for.
Well, when you're a little bitch like me, it was too long. I was, like, hiding under my sweater, and then, like, 7 minutes went by.
I respected it for, I think I don't hold blockbuster films to that kind of standard where they're gonna take a risk like that to have suspense drug out for, like, felt like 10 minutes at that point that you were just, like, waiting for them to jump out. It was a while.
But I didn't like how they looked. That's my only complaint from, like, book to movie. I can't
even explain what they looked
I don't remember them being, like, zombie-like creatures.
They were like frog zombie, like, they looked like the aliens. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, they didn't look that cool. Although the scene where they were fighting them, I thought was one of the more exciting ones, just in terms of action in the film. There's really not a lot of like fighting or action in the film at all. It's really just them walking and being like, "Oh, there's a trap over here. We'll walk around it."
Right. Or like, this entire town's gonna overflow with oil.
Yeah, and then
maybe we should just go to like the third floor of one of these buildings. That's it.
Yeah. And then random scenes where like PETA is talking to Katniss and Gale is just staring and being jealous.
Both the boys in this movie are cute.
They're very cute. Yeah.
Josh Hutcherson.
All right, let's go around the circle. Who do you think is the cuter one? Are you Team PETA or Team Gale?
I think I'm Team Gale. He was the buff dude, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why did she ended up with the one that looks like
her little brother?
Yeah, kind of.
He's only about 5'6"
like
in real life.
Guy. The one that made me cry in Bridge to Terabithia.
Yeah. But yeah.
I mean, Gale, the actor who plays Gale, Liam Hemsworth, is obviously more attractive than Josh Hutcherson.
Taller.
Yeah, way taller and more attractive. So, like, people who've only seen the movies usually lean towards him. Mm-hmm. But if you've read the books, then you're definitely, like, in favor of PETA because...
There was obviously a deeper emotional thing.
That's the thing that they leave out that I don't like. So all the books are from Katniss's perspective, and you just lose all of that and never know what she's thinking. She's just always scowling and, like, being a bitch to people. So you don't really understand who she is, and you don't really get her connection with either of them. Right. So Gale kind of grew up like her brother, but they loved each other because life was weird in Pan Am, and that's how things worked. And then PETA, like, loved her from afar, and then they had a real connection. But in the end of the book, she explains, like, I can't be with Gale. Number one, Gale is the reason her sister died, so she just, can't come back from that. And then also, like, she feels like she has so much anger and Gale has so much anger, and then PETA doesn't have that, and that's why she thinks she should be with PETA. But they don't explain any of that. Right. So a lot of people are like, why the fuck would she choose the uglier dude?
The weird blonde.
That she has to carry around for a lot of the franchise.
So, again, I don't want to go over the time limit. I feel like we already have. But I feel like it's one of those times where, I mean, unless anybody has anything else to say, or we got to choose some fingers.
No, I think we're ready to stick some fingers up
the Katniss's.
Yeah. Or PETA, or Gale, whoever you want.
There just wasn't
your choice.
There was also, I'll save it for my fingers. But one of you guys go ahead first. Since you guys made me go first with the
all right, let's go reverse.
Theater, yeah.
Let's go, which is probably going to be the higher one all the way down to the lower.
Yeah, so...
Lindsay,
go ahead.
Our Hunger Games consultant, how many fingers would you give on a scale of 0 to 5 with half fingers?
Oh, half fingers are an option. Okay, I mean, I feel like you guys are going to hate me for this, but I would give it a 4 because I'm biased as hell and just enjoyed it. And that's all I can really say. I thought that it was very true to the book. Okay. And I was entertained. Mm-hmm. And I liked it.
Good.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if our answers are invalid because we haven't read.
Right, exactly.
It's just a different experience.
Seeing a movie.
But no, you've brought this before. I think a movie has to stand alone.
Right.
And I think that also has to be true even if it's, the later half of like a trilogy or whatnot. Right. Like you still have to give some context so someone like Joe going in to see it is not like completely left in the dark. And then even me, someone who watched all the movies within like a 8-hour like time period, like the girl I went to see the movie with, I had to be like, all right, so was this in the books? Because I did not understand that at all. Like the part with when Katniss finds out that Gale is responsible for Prim's death. That's not really made clear in the movies at all.
No. Listen, let me just add something real quick before I get destroyed by you guys. I agree that if I did not read the books, I would have no fucking clue what's going on. Yeah. So I understand, but I'm just rating it as like my experience. Right, I enjoyed it because I had that backstory. But yes, there are many plot holes if you did not read the books that you probably don't understand what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I am acknowledging that is a thing.
Definitely.
And I think the acting is decent in the sense that I never feel like there's a cheesy moment.
No, and I think that's why I wouldn't like absolutely destroy the movie. Is that like I think the emotions are real. I think the acting is good. I think I point to the scenes where Jennifer Lawrence or Katniss is crying. Like in any other blockbuster movie, it would have just been like light tears going down the face and like sobbing. But like she like ugly cries in this movie, which like you don't see a lot in blockbuster movies. So I thought that was cool. And yeah, I think it's cool that it's willing to take risks to be like a sad kind of like blockbuster movie with not really any like uplifting parts about it.
Right.
Even the end is still like bleak. Like they try to give you a happy ending, but it's still bleak. I think I'm just gonna have to give it 2.5 stars out of 5.
Stars?
Star fingers.
Star fingers.
And Joe.
So
This is gonna be
comes over here. Man, this, like I said, I don't even know if I said this during the podcast or I said this off the record, but this took me 3 nights of trying to like power through this film. Again, I was totally lost. I really didn't feel like there was a lot of great acting in this, and I don't know if it didn't lend itself to like the actors again, because it does. It seems exactly like a part 2. Like this was the back half of a movie I never watched the front half of. There's no background, there's no story really for me. And I feel like it definitely missed out on like just some essential just movie, like, you know, I've watched part 2s of other like, you know, film series. In this one I was just completely lost in.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give it a half finger.
The lowest rating we have given so far.
Was the hardest. It was one of the hardest films.
You're giving it a nub.
Yeah, just a man with a half finger. I'm sorry, and it pains me to do that because it looks like such a talented cast. It's such a stacked cast, but it seemed like the back half of a movie. Like it seems like the last quarter of a movie, like kind of like almost because like these characters were maybe already established in these movies, and now they were just kind of like last line kind of like thing, and I don't know.
I read a review somewhere that said it was a good finale for the series, but it was just not a good movie, and I think I have to agree with that. That
standalone.
Like, after seeing
I'm coming in as a standalone critic.
Yeah.
And, like, that's what it was for me. It was a painful experience.
After seeing all the other movies, I was, satisfied in terms of where the plot went, but that's not necessarily up to the movie. And what the movie was able to do on its own, it did not do very well.
I'm just curious, though, like, how can a 4th film in a franchise stand alone?
It has to at least give some kind of context, because it has to understand that people are going to be seeing it, like, their date wants to take them to see the Hunger Games or whatnot.
Like I think
you can't leave people completely hanging with that.
I think part 2 of like the last Harry Potter film the Harry Potter films do a very great job of like introducing like this is this character, and there are ways that you can write a script where it already tells how a character.
Because you do it in any movie that's just a standalone movie on its own, where like we haven't read the books before, so we don't know that that's Katniss or whatever. You just introduce it in dialogue, where hey Katniss, pass the pita bread or something like that. Like inside joke there.
But yeah, it's just it wasn't as great as it wasn't. I think movies have to stand alone.
Yeah.
So I think. I think if you're going to release something in the theaters, it has to be something that people can walk into completely blind and understand. Mm-hmm. And I've walked, not to say that I've walked into movies like this before. This is a complete unique experience. But I think I always bring that in mind, and I say that a lot. Movies that are based off books can't just stand on the shoulders of books. They have to stand by themselves. So I stand by my terrible review
half finger
this film.
The last note I want to get in that we haven't got in yet is that the series is called The Hunger Games, but in the Mockingjay Part 1 and the Mockingjay Part 2 there are no Hunger Games. So I feel for Joe watching the Hunger Games, because those are the Hunger Games, the the actual movie, and then Catching Fire are decent movies, I think. They're definitely the better ones of the series because The Hunger Games, or Battle Royale, is the more interesting part of this entire series. It's where the series gets its title from. And then in Mockingjay Part 1 and Part 2, we really just get an apocalyptic movie, which is not the strength of the Hunger Games series at all. The strength was always the, the psychological shit of like, would you kill your best friend in the arena, or would you kill anyone in an arena if it was, between you and them? And then when you get to like apocalyptic scenarios in Mockingjay, like other movies have already done these scenarios way better than Mockingjay ever did. Right. So it just really can't measure up. So that's probably my biggest complaint, is that no Hunger Games in the Hunger Games.
Where are the Hunger Games?
Did you calculate all of these scores together?
I did calculate it. Let me pull that back up. That comes out to 2.3 repeating.
Really riding on my review.
So rounding it down, it's going to come out to two fingers, a flat old piece for the Hunger Games.
That's another change that we've made in this series. Is like the first few we've been like, well, I guess the review is like, I guess our final tally is like
3.75
3.756910, and instead we've decided to round down to the nearest finger, so that's what we're doing.
So two fingers, Hunger Games, Mockingjay Part 2. So signing out for How Many Fingers, the podcast. I'm Mike.
And I'm sorry, Lindsay. This is Joe.
I didn't write the film, so I forgive you.
Hey guys, Mike here with a cold, so excuse the sniffles. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up about next week's episode. We're going to be doing a special episode for the release of Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. And we'll be recording it right after seeing the first showing at 7 p.m. on Thursday, which means after accounting for the film's runtime, travel time back to Joe's apartment, recording time, editing time, and upload time, the episode might not make it online until the early hours of Friday morning. So if you don't see a new episode from us Thursday morning, don't panic, it'll be there Friday. And yes, we will definitely give you guys a fair warning about where the spoilers are in the episode so you can skip over them if you haven't seen the film yet. And anyway, here's where you can find us this week, next week, and for all weeks. You can find us on iTunes, the podcast app, and TuneIn by searching How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? You can follow us on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/HowManyFingersPodcast. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/HowManyFingersPodcast. You can tweet us on Twitter at HMFPodcast. You can check out our official website at HowManyFingersPodcast.com. And we do have a YouTube page, but YouTube still hates anyone who isn't Smosh and still won't let us set a custom URL for our page. So check out the links page on our website to find our YouTube link. And don't forget, we'll be back next week with our drunken review of Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens.